How Pearl Harbor Caused My Grandfather All Sorts of Trouble by Jared Dummitt. This story begins in 1941, when a Japanese surprise attack destroyed 188 American airplanes, 14 American ships, and 2,042 American lives. Their shared offense was being on a little island in the Pacific Ocean at very much the wrong time. 2,000 miles to the east, there lived a small Jewish family. The parents were immigrants from the newly minted Soviet Union, and with integration in mind, they had given their 3 sons almost excessively American names: Lester, Joe, and Arthur. In 1941, Lester was 18, Arthur was 17, and Joe was only 6 years old. In spite of their names, the 3 boys were raised on Jewish folklore. They certainly would have heard the children's rhyme, which rhymes in Yiddish, or so I am told but not in English, about how a housewife's freshly cooked brisket left in an open window gets eaten by a cat, which then chooses not to eat a bird, which then lives to eat some grain, which does not grow into wheat, so a mouse goes hungry, and so on ad infinitum, so that in the end, the housewife's husband, who is a rabbi, is unable to deliver a sermon, or something to that effect. Every telling is different because it hardly matters what the events are, merely that they flow into one another like droplets of molten wax, congealing to form a story in which the individual pieces are indistinguishable. What is the moral of this story? I was once told that it was simply, don't leave your briskets out on the windowsill because God knows hungry cats might be around. But that seems a bit silly, or at least irrelevant, because when I was young enough to have that song sung to me, we lived on the 16th story of a Manhattan apartment building, and it would take quite the cat to get at any brisket that my mother cooked. Not that she even ever cooked brisket in the first place. I think that it comes down to a question that no child will ever know the answer to. Whose fault is it that the sermon was never given? Was it the housewife's for leaving the brisket in such a vulnerable position? The cat's owner for failing to feed it earlier, or no one's? I think that the last answer is most likely. No single character ever conspired to silence the rabbi. His wife set out to cool a brisket. The animals did what they had to in order to survive. But somehow or another, they all came together so that their collective actions set off a chain of events that produced an unfortunate result. And in the same way, who can say what resulted from Emperor Hirohito's decision to launch so many planes? If the slightest action can have terrible consequences, perhaps we ought to never touch the world. But the war did not touch it. It slammed it like the fist of God, and the ripples go on and on and on. And those who joined in it must answer for each one of those ripples in its time. If this is true, then we are all guilty, but all innocent at the same time. I leave it to the rabbis, or priests, or imams, or wise men of any color and creed to tell me how that can be.